even though treatment is very effective, there is still no cure or vaccine for HIV, so we could really do with a drug that prevents healthy people from being infected, a drug that actually works. But how do we know that drugs work? Thanks to randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled studies. You've probably heard of a placebo, a pill containing merely sugar given to people instead of a drug to see how much better they will feel from just believing that they're receiving a drug. If people do better on the real drug than on placebo, the drug actually works. I already talked in another video about a study that found that HIV-negative men who have sex with men taking anti-HIV drugs are 44% less likely to be infected by the virus than guys on a placebo. This strategy is called pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP. But the problem with this particular study was that it affected the behavior of the participants. How? Condoms protect from many sexually transmitted infections, or STIs, but some people prefer not to use them, usually to feel more pleasure. So when a doctor in a sex clinic tells you, "Would you like a PrEP pill that can prevent HIV from infecting you?" it sounds like a great opportunity to not use condoms and feel the pleasure without risking an HIV infection. But if you think that the guys who joined this study became more reckless and promiscuous because what's the point of wearing a cape if you've already got an umbrella, you're wrong. See, the doctors had to be perfectly frank. You will either get an HIV-preventing PrEP pill or a placebo that does nothing. I don't know which one, and you won't know either. This, by the way, is why these studies are called double-blinded. And it seems like the participants actually became very aware that the pill they got might just be some extra sugar in their diet, and they weren't being protected from HIV at all. So maybe because of that, or maybe because they've just had a chat about HIV and other STIs with a health professional who also gave them a bunch of condoms, or maybe because not all of them were taking the drug every day after joining the study, not only did the participants have fewer sexual partners, but among those partners they were using condoms more often. So the results, as positive as they are, don't really tell us how PrEP works in everyday life, but rather how it works in a randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trial where people don't even know if they're being protected or not and change their behavior. So how do scientists deal with that? They ditch the whole placebo thing and make things more real. This was done by researchers who conducted another study called PROUD. They used no placebo, recruited men who have sex with men, not always with a condom, and said to them, "Here's a PrEP pill. It does contain the drug." One group got it immediately upon joining the study, another group had to wait for 12 months before getting it, and both groups were regularly tested for HIV. The interesting thing was that the number of sexual partners and unprotected sex did not seem to change much after joining the study. But there was one difference in behavior between the groups. When you have sex and might come into contact with HIV and risk infection, you can protect yourself by using condoms or PrEP, or just by not having sex. These methods act before you expose yourself to the virus, but there are also anti-HIV drugs that you can take afterwards. They're called post-exposure prophylaxis, or PEP. And the use of PEP was the big difference between the two groups in the PROUD study. Doctors wrote out 15 PEP prescriptions in the group that was on PrEP, and over 10 times more prescriptions in the group that wasn't. So you could say that being on PrEP changed the participants' behavior, but this actually is the real-life situation. If a drunken night without a condom happens, and you don't take PrEP, you're more likely to ask for PEP than when you are on PrEP and know that anti-HIV drugs are already in your body. So what did the PROUD study find? Firstly, that HIV infection rate among the guys who weren't on PrEP was dramatically high. But more importantly, that PrEP does work. The guys on PrEP were at least 86% less likely to contract HIV, even though they didn't use nearly as much PEP as the other group. So there you go. PrEP works not only in randomized, double-blinded, placebo-controlled trials, but in real life. The results of the PROUD study, however, don't mean that you can stop using condoms, start taking PrEP, and you'll be safe. Firstly, the reduction of risk by 86% is still not 100%, and not all guys on PrEP seem to have been protected by it. And secondly, if you're taking PrEP and think that you can't get HIV and aren't using condoms, you can still get other STIs, which is exactly what happened to about a half of the guys in the PROUD study. So PrEP definitely works, but making it easily available will probably always stir a debate along the lines of, are we preventing HIV spread or increasing the spread of other STIs? A debate too complex to contain in this video.